Today, we're going to hear from Erik Shepard. Not only is Erik a strong advocate, he also has lived experience with PTSD. And I don't want to spoil his talk because he's going to tell you about his experience and everything. So let's give Erik a hand and welcome him.
First and foremost, thank you for being a part of my healing process to be here today. There's a lot of pictures up there. They all happened in the same time. So maybe, the college graduation happened at the same time as a mugshot, or the school badge happened the same time as jumping off the stoop. But part of today is not just talking about trauma and post-traumatic stress, but post-traumatic growth as well. So they happen in unison, and the latter doesn't really get much play. I do run in a circle of veterans. Here's a professional background, actually. I'm from Greensboro, Moses Cone Hospital, but moved to Garner for elementary school. And I know I went to 3 elementary schools, so we moved around a lot, but we stuck around here: Raleigh, Apex, Chapel Hill, Cary, Smithfield, and now I'm in Asheboro. And it's beautiful out there. It's by the zoo. I live right by the zoo. My daughter can name every animal, do all the noises. It's pretty cool. She's 3.5. I went to Ayersboro, Carnage, and Southeast, so they had a magnet school program, and I lived near Heather Hills, near Lake Benson, and they had a bus system that would take you into Carnage and Southeast. My brother, he did Carnage Southeast in Athens. He was a basketball player, so he went to a different high school than I did in that part. But we both worked. I worked 39 hours a week in high school as a waiter. It's a great way to get cash now, and a free meal every shift I worked. And I worked at some pretty good food places. I'd still eat there. I joined the Marine Corps to kind of get out of the destruction cycle I was in. That came through bullying, things like that. That's where it starts, elementary school. That was my exposure to trauma. Outside of accidents, you fall on the playground, break some bones, whatever. But public school for me and the bullying cycle is where trauma started. And there was below that, the Marine Corps kind of broke that chain. They gave me the discipline and the structure. They gave me expectations. They held me accountable. But it didn't take away what you ultimately have to go through, which is a recovery cycle. So we'll talk about it today, but everything kind of happens in a pattern. So after the Marine Corps, I actually went to Iraq, and then I went to college, and then I went to Afghanistan. But I was a technology trainer in Iraq. If you had a pulse and a security clearance and a military background, you could deploy overseas. And I'd had that, and my friends had that, and we all went overseas. We all got out of the military, and we all went back as civilians. And we'll see today too. I try to have some graphs up here, but I transitioned 3 times from the DoD community to, I call it the civilian world. I don't know what you really call it. A lot of jokes. First couch platoon, because that's kind of what you do. When you get back, you take some time off, and there's different schools of thought about that. Taking a year off, taking time off. It's everybody's different. So and I know that I'm a social butterfly, and I've met a lot of people, and I've lost a lot of people, and you never know. Intelligence analyst. I read the war in Afghanistan, and one of the traumas that we'll talk about would be vicarious trauma. So that led to that. Reading a war and stuff that's happening real time right now to right there, it's pretty heavy stuff, and you can heal from it. There's processing, but you still have to go through it. Project management was a happy entry point into the corporate world for me, because transitioning out of 8 years of doing DoD stuff, that's keeping stuff covered in the line is in my DNA, and I had a specialty, so I had a security clearance, and I worked with technology that caught terrorists, and now it's commercial. Biometrics. You can open your door with a fingerprint, whatever, blow and breath, whatever. That's the kind of stuff we could get evidence in court on these people because of the technology we had. We could take them off the bad streets. Then I went into sales because there's not a lot of money and nonprofit. It doesn't mean non-lucrative, but I wanted to go to sales. Had aspirations, still have aspirations. Young, kind of in the prime. I think you see that these parts are in the prime, where longest working hours, highest career trajectory, incline. So moved into sales, and then I didn't really like the pressure. I was sitting in a VP, like a quarterly review or something. This is when I got out of sales, pretty much. And This guy was 600% over quota. 600% over quota during COVID for sales. We sold refreshment programs in Research Triangle Park. And this dude looked at him and was like, I think you got more. I think you got more in the pipeline. And I had poker face, but I couldn't believe it. It was that moment. It was like, this guy is 600%, I'm not taking that stress. So I moved to customer success, which is everything after the contract. And it's not, I don't have to worry about the money. There's upselling and things like that, but it's really not, there's no pressure. It's all about a solution for the customer. And I like that. So certifications, certified life coach is completely online, but I'll talk about that in a minute on another slide, but it was the only cheapest, it was the only on-demand solution to prompt, for me, reflection, guided reflection. And there's a difference between deliberate rumination and invasive rumination. So somebody telling you, hey, this is messed up, think about that, versus explore the possibilities of this situation as an opportunity. And so it's like, let them think they thought of the idea themselves. That's essentially the difference. And my entry into therapy was court mandated. So we'll go through that, but I wasn't happy. It wasn't a great situation. I didn't seek it out. And I didn't speak to a specialist. I spoke with a divorce person, and that's not what I needed. I don't know what a combat veteran is. I didn't carry a weapon. I just got shot at a lot, FOBs and on just transportation. But there's a hierarchy of service within the veteran community. Oh, you were in the office, really. So I'm saying all this up front because I want you to kind of see what we're going to be talking about today. So, got my teacher's license from the state of North Carolina. Got my degree in education. I went to UNC Greensboro, graduated magna cum laude. Have some project management certifications. I can test for the PMP. I'll do that this year. The outdoors are very friendly to me. North Carolina specifically, mountains, beach, coast, Piedmont coast, and the Uaris, where I'm at right now, which is a hidden gem. They're the oldest mountains in North America, I'm pretty sure. It says it on the old Forest Service surveys on the hiking trails, but it's disputed online. So if anybody's got access to AI, you could ask. They're just wonderful mountains. They're not too steep. It's an hour and a half from right here. It's Randolph County, Montgomery County. But with that, I've done a lot of things. I started off playing Little League, school sports, and I stopped doing that in high school. Started working. I didn't play any more sports. And in that time, I did in the summer while my parents were getting divorced, I did trail maintenance for 4 weeks in Olympic National Park in Washington, and it rained. It rained. I don't think there's anything else to say. It rained. Banana slugs were huge. I'd never seen whatever type of insect maybe that is. I don't know what it is, but they were large. And I'll never forget that. But I did a 12,000-mile road trip in between Afghanistan and Iraq in college. And I lived in that van right there, and I went to a lot of national parks. They had a free national park pass for veterans, I think. Even if they didn't, I had saved my money. But I do have that free national park thing now. I just can't remember if I had it then. And it was neat. Outside of every national park, there's national forests. You can sleep in national forests for free if you move every 14 days. Never an issue for me. I wasn't in a place that long, but it's a great system. If you want to get to the outdoors, very inexpensive. You can buy an old van, take out the seats, and sleep in parking lots. Walmart lets you sleep in their parking lots. So I did that a lot. It was about 3 months, and I did that because I was trying to hike the Appalachian Trail for the first time, maybe for the second time actually, and I got hurt. I got a MRSA, and I was tired of hiking, so I went on to the road trip. But I've done a lot of outdoor things, been to 10 countries, 14 state parks, there's 41 of them. The most effective adventure for me has been section hiking the Appalachian Trail. I think at one point I did 300 miles at once, 350, and then another point I did the 100-mile wilderness in Maine. And that was the first time I went 24 hours without seeing somebody. If you think in your life about when you've gone 24 hours without seeing another person, I can't with that. Section hike, 25 service projects. Yeah, I found a very happy circumstance there. along with the service projects. Again, what I learned in one of the veteran service organizations, when you help yourself, you help people. But we'll get through all that. I got married in 2014, where we are now in Randolph County, and we're still active. It's, they have fire towers, and they don't have that waterfall out there. That's Elk Falls on the Tennessee-North Carolina border, we were passing through Pogie, Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee, Butler, Tennessee, and it's not a hike. It doesn't look like that now after Hurricane Helene. I don't think anything does. I've traveled a lot. Traveled 200,000 miles. That's probably up there on flights. Maybe I took it off, but I've been traveling for work, and I flew over all of the Appalachian mountain chain there after Helene, and you could see where the rivers had shifted. They were brown, go through their, they would go through their normal cuts and be green on either side. And then after Helene, it looked like there were two rivers, and one was just dull, matte, and the other one was shiny. And the rivers had shifted around whole towns, and the whole town was brown. And that was not one town, it was 5 towns, 6 towns, 7 towns. And I'm sure you've seen them on the news, Hendersonville, Swannanoa, up and then on up. Remarkable what nature can do. And I've experienced trauma in my life. And I think we all probably have to some degree. I do think we all have to some degree. And I'm a sensitive person, despite, growing up the way I grew up. I was pretty much abandoned at 16. I hate to say that, but I played my parents. My parents got a divorce. My dad is a businessman, and he divided the mortgage by 2 and found a neighborhood that was equal to that, and it was not a nice neighborhood for me. I stayed there. I assimilated. I did what I did. But I told my mom I was with my dad. I told my dad I was with my mom, so nobody knew where I was, and nobody needed to be there, and nobody was there. And so I was there, and I worked 39 hours a week. I didn't work 40 because then you have to be put on benefits. You had to be full time, and I liked working. It was a good escape, and it was pretty easy money. I was a waiter, and for the most part, it was just meeting the expectation. I met a lot of people though. That's the thing, and that's why I'm speaking today. I'm speaking today because, and I was talking to Pam before, but it's like this is a perfect juncture of time where data meets maybe urgency, where people need to start talking from any community, really, not just the veteran community, but about the traumas that are happening, because the data is not getting any better. And if you think it is, there's different data out there. We can look at any kind of data. You can find any answer you want, they say out there on the internet, but the data, it's not going down. I would say it's getting worse. They say you can follow certain types of phenomenon by, how it spreads. So it spreads like a disease. Maybe gun crime spreads like a disease. Trauma spreads like a disease. Suicide spreads like a disease. Violence spreads like a disease. So here's trauma types. It's a distressing or disturbing experience that it says lasting negative effect, but trauma, and this is what's in some sort of, I didn't put a works cited. I have my degree in education and English, and I didn't put a works cited on purpose because one time, but 2, we can go look at this stuff together. I have no problem saying these things, but trauma can produce a lasting positive experience, and post-traumatic growth is something that happens in unison with post-traumatic stress. So they're happening at the same time. You're getting your mugshot taken because of your inability to cope with your trauma, but you're graduating magna cum laude because you have a good brain. You know what the standards are. You held yourself to that, But how wide is that spectrum? So we'll look at some of the PTSD symptoms, but one of them is, risk averse. Like, I don't care about driving 90 miles an hour at that tree, swerving at the last second. Maybe, I don't know. That's how some people die, and then they might write that off as a single vehicle accident with a high toxicity report from the OCME or from medical examiner's office. But in reality, it was a suicide. So we don't have to look at data to know that it doesn't matter which bucket the data falls in, is what I'm saying there. It doesn't matter how you shift it, because it gets shifted by how you reclassify certain circumstances. So trauma, by the way, this is what we're talking about, is a deeply stressing event. that happen. And that could be anything, by the way. Like if you're in 3rd grade and you see something terrible. Maybe you dropped your chocolate milk. That's what's terrible in 3rd grade. Maybe you have trauma there. How did you drop it? Was that your last chocolate milk? Was it the only chocolate milk you've ever had in your life? Was it your mom's last chocolate milk? Mike Tyson, somebody hurt his pigeon. I don't know how it all went down. They created the world's greatest, most violent fighter, by some people's opinions, I don't know. But that piece of trauma, a bird died. Some could hit windshields on the way here, but the right thing in the right moment could be the most traumatic thing for somebody. And so there are different types. Does it keep happening? Is it chronic? Is it different types? Is it coming from all directions? Every environment you're in? These are the types of events, though: natural disasters, accidents, assaults, violence. I'm very, 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 very familiar with violence. I know a lot about violence. Grew up in violence. I believe that public schools are violent based on my definition of what I believe violent is, which is the textbook definition. But they happen. It happens all the time. We get desensitized to it. So, intense fear. So that could be anything too. Like, are you deeply, if my daughter's not afraid of a chicken, she's not afraid of any insect, which is probably a problem because, Uwharrie Mountains are everything's trying to kill our chickens. And I'm taking a little break here. We have a little farm. We've been experimenting with chickens. We've had goats, pigs, the small ones, coonies, pygmy goats. Everything tries to kill our chickens. Foxes, bobcats, neighbors' cats, hawks. I've seen hawks slam straight into black netting over a thing from out my office window. I measure office windows. Where I worked with BAM was a very good one. I have a hummingbird feeder, beautiful courtyard, and now I have chickens. Nature is happening right there. I've seen hawks pass mice among each other in the air in my driveway. I didn't even know they did that. I had to ask the zoo. They're like, "Oh, they're not fighting. No, that's a mating ritual. It's very uncommon." And I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Right in my driveway. That's what happened. There's so many hawks. So with that, she's not afraid of any of that stuff right now, even though it's out there. And she'll find out about it one day. Is my point. So helplessness, combat. I don't know what that's like. I really don't know what combat's like. I was never allowed. I had a boot knife. I would go to these dangerous places. It made newspapers. We were securing airports and doing these things, but I don't really know how you define what combat is. Because if you define it a certain way, then it happens on the way to school. If I'm doing an intelligence report that has a complex, coordinated, and a simple attack from different weapon systems from different parties of people, that happens on the school bus. So trauma, this is what I believe. Everyone is a victim of something. Something happened to you at some point in your life, and you moved on, whatever that looks like, however deep it was. Did a bird die? Were you in combat? I get in trouble for saying this probably. I've said it a lot, but war was fun for me. I enjoyed it. Best job, one of the best jobs I've ever had. I really enjoy what I'm doing now. And I've had a pretty exciting career. I've worked at the Pentagon. I was a chaser. I went after deserters. Marine Corps is the only branch that goes after deserters. No other branch goes after deserters. If you want to leave, you leave. But Marines have a unit that goes after them. And I was in that unit as a paperwork guy. I was admin. And I switched over to intelligence after I got out. But that's pretty intense. And people left for certain reasons with that. But I worked at the Pentagon, and then after that, Research Triangle Park, and then after that, now I'm at a digital healthcare startup out of the Bay Area, California, because of meeting, connections that I had in the military. So it's network and community engagement is something we'll talk about, but trauma is subjective, and I believe everybody experiences it. And it's cyclical. I think this is a part that's not thought about a lot. And this is why I brought up that CDC expansion study on, I didn't bring up the study, but on gun violence, that it spreads like violence. They shoot, they shoot, they shoot, they shoot. It spreads like a line. You can almost predict it even with some data models, where it's going to happen next. You can almost interrupt it too with some data models. and predict where it's going to happen next. So this trauma is passed down, absolutely. This trauma is passed down generationally. Generational trauma. You may be born with trauma, not even know it. And that was a problem for me to learn, that in order to stop it from being passed down and removing myself from the environment, setting healthy boundaries was something that helped me. I don't know if that's me or...
No, it's not you, it's the air conditioner.
Oh, it's air conditioner, okay. I was getting hot, it's starting to glow, I think. No, I'm just kidding. I'm doing that to myself. Yeah. Trauma also happens in loops. So it's the body's stress responses to traumatic events can become exaggerated and trigger similar reactions. I haven't been reading my notes. I probably should. On this, I just wanted to mention that trauma is an event, and a system of events follows that. So it's a system of cycles that follows that. Okay, you've been traumatized. Now we're going to be going through all of these different types of patterns, including the recovery process. So even stages of trauma recovery can have re-traumatizing events if it's done in an unhealthy or an irregular, unbalanced method. I put some in bold of trauma effects, but this absolutely varies. But one of them that we'll be speaking about today is PTSD. A lot of these, I experienced, and you mask, you cope with whatever. Maybe you have digestive issues and you take a pill to get rid of it. You don't have to think about it anymore. You keep moving. Or maybe, you have sleeping issues and you take a pill and you don't have any more problems. You just don't have to think about the underlying issues. Or concentration. What are you concentrating on? And that's something, I had concentration issues. And that's something that why am I not thinking about present day, what's in front of me right now? And for each and every single one of these negative ones, there is a positive to it. So if I have concentration problems, maybe mindfulness, which is hyper focus on the event that you're doing right now. So maybe I'm sure there's a definition out there, and I should have put it up there, but maybe instead of shaving in 30 seconds before work and cutting yourself 3 times, you take 5.5 minutes to shave, and you listen to the hairs pluck and hear the shaving cream can spray out. And think about that. That's mindfulness, and it reels you back in to the moment for concentration. So trauma effects can be negative, which is what the definition says, but they can also be positive because it can thrust you into a realm of healing, but functioning beyond your previous capabilities. So my big one was irritability and anger. I had no emotion management. Couldn't. Survivor mode. Explosion. That's what it is. You don't want to be the victim. So it's easy to be angry because that is a response to fear. So anger isn't, I don't know what people call it, but that's not the emotion that is rooted inside of me. It's a reaction, and the emotion is fear. What am I afraid of? Back then, I don't know, card repossession, violent acts, kicked out of school, no education, criminal record, whatever your fear is. I don't know. Is that girl gonna like me? But how do you respond to that fear? And I had unhealthy mechanisms. I didn't know what right looked like. I had no example. There's no class on it. I didn't pay attention to what was in front of me if there was a solution. I wasn't listening. I wasn't in a place to listen. I was too busy to listen. And that wasn't what I was listening to. So PTSD is what we're going to be talking about for the most part. Memory problems. That's huge if you've got, you're filing a lot in your Rolodex. There's a difference in capacities from having 1 job to 2 jobs to 3 jobs, with stuff like that too. So it's like, how much memory can I even allocate here? There's no more resources. So with that, moving on to the next slide, thank you. What is PTSD? So it's a trauma response. It stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's what an individual reacts, how an individual reacts to trauma. Major symptoms break down into those 4 buckets. Intrusive memories, and that's where the intrusive thoughts you think about all the time, you don't have closure. That's me. That was a big thing. Like, why did this happen? I got to figure it out. Why? I don't want it to happen to anybody else. Why does it keep happening? What? Blah, blah, blah. And you're just rocking in your worry chair, with intrusive memories. And there's ways to process, remove through, and those intrusive memories. But if you're trying to recognize these in people, it's not hard. You can just sit in traffic here on Highway 40. That's what sent me to the mountains. If you're curious, it was traffic on 440 every day. And I had a good system. I lived over off Jones Franklin. I had 2 exits to get where I needed to go. It's Davis Drive or something. It's 3 exits. But they had exit lanes and all that kind of stuff. But you look in people's facial expressions inside those car windows. Some of them are busy. Some of them are on a call. Not 1% of them are laughing or smiling. 1% out of 100 cars. I didn't look every day. But the point is, you can see negative changes in thinking and mood. And I recognize that myself in traffic. That's an easy one that a lot of people can relate to. But does it bleed over to your social circles? Does it bleed over to something that you do as a habit all the time, and you don't want to do it anymore, or you don't want to do it happily? You don't have as much life and what you used to have, and that's stuff evolves. Being an outdoors kind of guy, I mean, I've gone through every outdoor thing I can get my hands on. From mushroom foraging and hunting, fishing. Fishing is a good, activity for a lot of people. My daughter can already fish. She's young. A lot of easily accessible places where we are. Here too, I just imagine they're more crowded going in the off time, but avoidance I had significantly. And I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know the root cause of wanting to avoid people, but I think probably one thing happened and I lost trust. Something happened. Anything could have happened. And you have a lack of trust. I don't trust anybody ever again. That's what you think. You have to build trust back. So to avoidance, hoodies and sunglasses and headphones. And that's commonplace today. Earbuds and everything. I remember the first time I saw a Bluetooth headset, I was sitting at a car shop and somebody was talking, and we were the only 2 there, and there was a TV on, and he was talking on the phone. I didn't know it. His Bluetooth was on his side. He was talking about something. I was like, yeah, home run, something. And he looked at me like I was crazy, which hey, there you go. That's when I knew technology was changing, because I had a flip phone for so long. So with that, headphones is just an easy way to completely block out everything, unneeded, unwanted light. In the military, you're wearing iPro goggles. You're wearing a Kevlar. You might be wearing something over your face. You're definitely wearing long sleeves in the heat. To the point where people would sweat salt, and the gear would scratch their back from the crust of salt. Like the salt would rock up from their sweat in the gear that they wore, running like that. That's how hot it was over there. It's a dry heat though. It's not like this. Every time I come home to North Carolina, if I'm out somewhere, I feel the humidity kick me in the face. It's especially new this year, or hard this year. I don't know what it is, but I learned a new phenomenon: corn sweat. So you got a cornfield, and every day in the summer, in the high heat, it sweats enough to raise the humidity in that area. Now I live around cornfields. It's not as bad as living oceanside, of course, but changes in physical, emotional reaction, jumping, next slide, please. There's probably a lot more symptoms on the next one. But complex PTSD, which is, complex persistent PTSD, is something that it doesn't go away. The symptoms never subside. And you're probably still being traumatized at the same time you're experiencing the most intense experiences for trauma. And the whatever receptors in you and me, resilience, maybe it was a character trait, is like, nah, this is standard. This is what it's supposed to be. This is how everybody acts. This is how other people have had it worse, and they've moved on. Have they? They've moved on to better places, maybe. If social media isn't a highlight, they have. But that's another thing too, is recovery obstacles, and we'll talk about that on a subsequent slide. There's about 30 slides, and I don't know which one we're on, but if you're curious how far we're progressing, we're still in like the first 5. So chronic feelings of shame or guilt are symptoms. These are deeper symptoms. Emotional dysregulation. So stoicism is kind of a positive attribute to a reaction to that, just shutting down. That has helped me a lot, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But making the decision not to react has saved, kind of like a poker game, has saved from some pretty serious situations, you know. And I don't know who experiences anger or whatever, but I remember one time, a couple times, just instead of reacting, I sat in a chair. I was in a comfortable place. I sat in my chair, and I felt what anger felt like. And it resonates through your system. It pulses. You feel it in your chest. Your heart rate increases. It might get tight. Your throat might get, your carotids might get stiff. Shoulders hard. And if you feel that anger, it's pulsing from your feet to your fingertips to your head. And it goes away in 2.5 minutes. You just experience the emotion of anger without doing anything. 2.5 minutes. But in those 2.5 minutes, criminal charges, car accidents, deaths. Nobody teaches you that. Plus, you don't even know how bad. I didn't even know how bad. I keep saying you, and most of these are me. I feel, I didn't know what anger even felt like. It can feel like a heart attack. You can drop to a knee. The only difference, maybe, and I'm in cardiac devices now, so I'm pretty familiar with the cardiac, that realm. But I've never had a heart attack, Probably had a severe anxiety attack, but the numbers weren't there, I was so curious. I was like, what happened? Like, I don't know. You got an elevated D dimer, which happens, but it's a stress response too. And that makes way more sense to me than having a heart attack. But I could still breathe. And so feel just a basketball in your chest. I took a deep breath, took a knee, and thought I had a heart attack. Went in and nope. So I had no idea that's what anger felt like. I thought it felt like wanting to scream, ears steaming, getting closure really quick on something. But a big one too was a negative self-image, and this is where my network helped, specifically my wife, my spouse. I transitioned. I'll probably show a time. I transitioned. I'll probably show a timeline. But transition points, reentry points in the military, because I have civilian friends. Don't get me. The majority of my friends are civilian friends, and I can't find a difference in our journeys, other than war, military. But you transition from high school to college to work. Those are transition points that make you reflect on your identity, in a positive or negative way. So it could be, the point is there's commonality here, and my network helped bring me out of the negative self-image, that realize my self-worth again, which leads to the others of wanting to trust again, wanting to love again, wanting to emote again, making the decisions. So, I didn't know what the difference was between flashbacks and nightmares and stuff like that, and just thinking about stuff, intrusive thoughts or whatever. So if you think you're there, that's a flashback. If you think you're getting shot at or whatever, that's a flashback. If you're just thinking about getting shot at, that's different. If you're pontificating about, in a reprocessing process, a certain situation, that's not a flashback. But if you think you're there and you're physically changing things, that's a different ballgame. A lot of the symptoms that I experienced were around emotions, hypervigilance, on alert all the time. I could tell you the cars that pass by, how close the first person is to me. I'm standing behind everywhere. I'm in the back of the room. And what makes it hard is like you're going through all this stuff and you're getting made fun of at the same time. They're going to laugh at you. Adam Sandler said it. They're all going to laugh at you. And it's true, There's a line between bantering and bullying. And other people have cries for help too, but that's to the extent of like making fun of dead Marines. Like I've been out multiple places, airlines, restaurants. I used to wear military garb everywhere to find, talk to a fellow. And I just stopped. There were more negative interactions than positive ones in most cases. But physical health impacts was a big one for me, because it's like I can just keep going and keep doing my work. I'm physically active. I'm in shape for the most part. But now these emotions have created these physical changes in my body, and I can't control them. That's not fair. I can't just do something and it goes away like quickly. I have to take the time. I have to take the time to fix these things from the underlying issue, which bringing in all these who knows? Nobody knows, let's just say that. But bringing in all of these extra factors, there might be a recipe for individuals to put together a formula that fixes their specific circumstances by offsetting the balance sheet of trauma and post-traumatic growth. So post-traumatic growth is a cycle, just like trauma, and it's going to happen. It happens to everybody. And it refers to of course, the positive of all of the changes in people beyond their previous capabilities. So it's not just like, hey, good job, you made it through this hard thing. It's like, you made it through this hard thing, and then you did this and this and this and this, and it springboarded you into enough of a cushion to keep you out of the deepest, darkest places, because everybody has that bottom limit. That's the problem with veterans is I don't know about civilians. I would imagine the same, just anybody in any certain situation at the time. But, you get springboarded into these situations, and you don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know where the bottom is, and you don't know how well you can do. Nobody's given you all of the resources for you to realize your whole potential. All the resources are not there to cater to every student in the Wake County public school system, let's say, to let them build a spaceship, or to let them, to capitalize. And so what trauma does is it finds a way. It creates post-traumatic growth. It instills a sense of urgency, or it redefines your perspectives from certain things, being exposed. I've heard of exposure therapy to help with what a fear might be, but it'll give you whatever your body needs in order to survive in that moment. So on the diet slide, we'll talk about 90% of your body's serotonin, which is that feel-good chemical, comes from your stomach, your gut. Had no idea. But that's how important these things are. And so regardless, with post-traumatic growth, you'll improve in 5 different areas that have been researched and found that just send you to the moon if that's the ride you want to ride. So changes in one's perception. Next slide, please, because we kind of outlined those 5. So you have an appreciation of life, appreciation of beauty. If it takes more than 5 minutes to get out of bed in the morning, you might not appreciate what you're getting up to. And so post-traumatic growth is just making the decision to get out of bed, to wake up, just consistency, habit. And we'll talk about that as being one of the wellness, one of the benefits of strategies that helped me was consistency and just doing it, because it becomes habit, and it does physiologically change neurotransmitters in your brain. That's what happens with habit. So improved relationships, absolutely. More intense feelings around maybe more important people with post-traumatic growth. But what's happened here is that you've replaced kind of a gratitude and hope over the fear and anger. So I don't really need to wake up fearful. They're irrational anyway for the most part. Why not just throw in some gratitude, some thankfulness in there, and appreciate these moments, which plays a part of mindfulness too. You don't have to sit there and shave for 5 minutes. You can be at the playground with your child, or you can be woodworking in the garage, or whatever, which I'm not a woodworker, but increased personal strength, fitness, physical attributes. So when you go through trauma, maybe there is a survivor's response that makes you want to feel empowered, get empowered, take care of yourself. And people in the trauma side of that might see that, I was overpowered, I need to get stronger. I was overpowered, I'm going to go overpower somebody else to feel better. And that's that trauma disease, essentially. You're entering into the trauma cycle, but then you're bringing other people into it with you. So new possibilities. Yeah, if you have a different perspective, it certainly opens the doors, especially with, coupling that with improved relationships. Maybe you get a bigger network and you're engaged in the community again. New possibilities pop up. And these are things that data-driven happen for anonymous rows of veterans, but of civilians as well. They break down all this sanitized data about, okay, this number, social security number or whatever, has done these amount of things, criminal record check, college education check, so it's like a progression. So these are factual things that update. So with that, post-traumatic growth can be leaned into. Next slide, please. This is my trauma progression. So that's the neighborhood I grew up in high school. And that's how serious it was. I traded 6 criminal charges to go into the Marine Corps. I wasn't a patriot. I enlisted on September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11. And I had the delayed entry program for the Marine Corps because somebody said, like, hey, why don't you join the Marine Corps? You got those charges. Okay, sure will. And then I did. I am a patriot, don't get me wrong, but that wasn't what I was thinking about then. Moving through, you see 3 vertical black lines. Those are transitions from the military back into the civilian world. So the first time I transitioned, I was a waiter again when I got out of the Marine Corps, which was you go from being a leader of Marines to a waiter again. Well, it was a happy medium. Really makes you question, your identity, things like that, which kind of lowers your self-worth. But then, I was sprung into the next opportunity. I waited long enough, and I did what I wanted to do, which was to be that technology trainer in Iraq, because I had a pulse and a security clearance and a military background. But then I came back from that and went to college, and that was a very intense reentry. So coming from war to college, that's in my hometown, and I went to UNC Greensboro because they were the only ones who accepted criminals in the spring semester. So I wanted to start because I could get the GI Bill. I could get paid to go to college, which was important. And the GI Bill pays your tuition and then some groceries, and I think rent. I think it paid rent too. So when I was in college, my big deal was drinking and fighting. High school, drinking and fighting. I like it. It was fun. I grew up doing little league sports. One of them was Taekwondo. So I did that, and I was exposed to violence, and I was good at it. I was 12th in the nation at one point. I was the best in 3 states around here that my dad felt like driving to. But then after the divorce happened, I didn't have that outlet anymore. And so I just did it wherever it would happen. It'll happen if you want to. You can find it. So I found it in college too. Like I just didn't click with some of the things. I didn't have an understanding of an emotional balance. And I fell back into the same trap. And the same thing happened. As soon as I joined the Marine Corps, I was overseas for 2 years. It didn't matter about me driving because I didn't have a license. I got it revoked. I was part of the deal. It's like, all right, you can't drive for 2 years. Okay. I didn't need to overseas. So I came back, I got my license again, and I'm re-entering a world that I left, and it was pretty close to pretty terrible. A lot of poor decisions. I didn't have the tools to go through that, and that was representative when it finally rubber met the road in college. You have a lot more opportunities, but positive and negative. So from there, I went to Afghanistan as an intelligence analyst, and that's where I kind of learned about vicarious trauma. I didn't know you could get traumatized from just reading something, being around something. We were on a FOB, we were on bases. I was in Kandahar, and I was in Bagram and Kabul. And we got shot at, we got rocketed, we got bombed. I did a couple of little patrols for fun with people, like on a mounted patrol, which is in a vehicle. But reading the terrible things that happen in war, it gets to you, and that's not even as bad as the people who are flying the drones, who are dropping ordnance on stuff. But there maybe, who knows? It's subjective. Maybe it's not traumatizing at all, or in a different degree. But Afghanistan was absolutely 100% a different war than Iraq. Period. There's no comparison. Not the way we fought it, not the enemy. And this was huge for me. These people that we fought in Afghanistan slept in caves for 20 years, and they said, "We'll be back. We'll be back." Told the local populace, "We'll be back," and they were back. And one of the programs that I was on, the information was compromised. So all of my information about everything about me and my family was given to them. So not only, and they don't really like technology, I don't know what they're doing with it, but that hurt that we were even in that position. I went to war for a country that gave the enemy my entire family's information. That hurt my identity because I come from a family that served in every single armed conflict that the United States has ever been in. You can trace it back to the Society in Cincinnati and that Revolutionary War officers. I had no idea I was going to join the military. It was not pushed on me. It was a happy circumstance. But seeing it all big picture and seeing something like that happen, it was a lot longer than 2.5 minutes sitting in a recliner. It was to the point where I had to make a decision, and that's kind of where we moved through. I was going through one tough year right there. This was it. I don't know what you call it, but the Afghanistan withdrawal, which was no different than my dad's Vietnam withdrawal. Saigon, fall of Saigon, similar. And I saw what he did. And I think that's a good example. What he did afterwards is he really leaned in to helping that community of people relocate here. If you know anything about Montagnard people or Hmong people are in California, different geolocations, but the Montagnards are allies in Vietnam. A large amount of them were relocated to Greensboro, North Carolina, 86,000. And I might be off on my numbers, whatever, but that's what he chose to do. And so instead of whatever, he told me he was on his way back from Vietnam, and his team called him, and they're like, "Hey man, change out of uniform. Change out of uniform. They're spitting on us. They're spitting on us." And so he changed out of uniform. He didn't get spit on when he came back to the airport. But that doesn't happen today. Very patriotic country today, but there are systems and processes that are in place that act like you're getting spit on, especially if you have a type of corrupted perspective of life. So it's like, yeah, maybe it is really hard. Maybe that's why the numbers are up, is because there's nothing to lean into, people think, into the growth aspect of it. So now, one bad year, we had our first child during COVID after 5 years of IVF. It was actually the first cycle. I don't want to say that, but it took a long time to do all the stuff to get there. So we were very happy, and she was born at 1 pound, 13 ounces. Fit in your hand, rice kernel fingers. Crazy. She's full blown now. She really is. So it's pretty much re-entry. I'm gonna have to go through all of the terrible things. But job transition anytime can be traumatic. I mean, why are you leaving the job? Why are you going to the next one? What's the next one? What is it even? But it makes you question. You're becoming a new person. You're becoming a new person, kind of. And if that's not done in a healthy manner, or if you're a part of a toxic organization, downward spiral. I do want to see trauma reprocess. Let me see what that. Anybody read what that word is on top of trauma reprocess? Isolation, absolutely. So after that, thank you. Wellness strategies with major impact. I prioritize self-care above everything else. So one of the big things that helped me was having a defined purpose. What do I want to do with my life? I'm able-bodied, I'm a good person, I have talent, I want to do something in this direction because it makes me feel good. Let me couple that with some goals. Let me couple that with a big one would be positive mental attitude. Make yourself wake up happy, so perpetual positivity, and that consistency. So back to the isolation, I remove myself from the environment. It's okay to remove yourself from the environment to free up space to heal. So time management, that's one thing that really helped me get through, freeing up space, not just removing the toxicity, but freeing up space to get out of, or get into the healing cycle. So recreational therapy was huge for me. Adventures, a pilgrimage, that's what it felt like. You move in through doing something very hard to achieve something. Maybe it's 100 miles, maybe it's hiking 100 miles or kayaking or something hard, speaking in front of people. That's a pilgrimage, and it allows you to feel an achievement. Jump starts, catalyzes a change into the post-traumatic growth realm. Entrepreneurship is a very healthy entry point for veterans for sure. Next slide, please. Deliberate rumination is the key here. Make the decision to reflect on these things. So if I experienced something in the court, said, hey, go to anger management, go to this therapist, think about these things because this is bad. That's way different than like, man, I keep thinking about this. What can I do? What can I do about, and hobbies really helped out. So waking up with verbal affirmations, that helps too. It sounds a little hokey, but that works. It sets your brain right. You sit up, you breathe, take a bunch of deep breaths. This is going to be a good day. I wrote a lot. So that's probably my number one best outlet was writing. I would put which gave me that 2.5 minutes to not do something that might have gone in the other direction. Next slide, please. Emotional releases. We'll have these list making. Hopefully we'll all get the slides here and you can review these. But goal setting was big. So get your purpose and then hold yourself accountable. Find somebody in your network to be accountable with you. Wellness goals, career goals, life goals. Because no matter what happens, it's like, I didn't get a house by the time I was 30, but I got one by the time I was 35. Or maybe I didn't do very well with school, but man, I got all these cool trade certifications that really just work off of merit. And those are types of things your goals may evolve, which is fine. There's personality tests out there to help you learn what it's like to have an identity and how it interacts with other people. I really enjoyed the Myers-Briggs. It'll line you up with what you are typically, and then what other people are and what good interactions look like. So it helps recalibrate what an appropriate social interaction looks like. And you get to learn about yourself too. What are my 5 major strengths out of the 20 from StrengthsFinder 2.0? I'm a woo, which is winning others over. I'm a positive, which is, being positive despite whatever's in the rain, There's a bunch of them. There's fun ones. I put a link to that one because it's free. So these were hobbies. Pick one. Pick anything. Hobbies are a distraction to addiction, which is fine because it gets you out of your symptom cycle of being traumatized. And that's what it did for me. And I got bored. I get bored easily. I don't focus on things a lot. So I've traveled through a lot of hobbies, which is, it doesn't have to be too expensive. You just makeshift parts, Goodwill, thrift shopping, which was a hobby to get, whenever they intersect, that's great. So go thrift shopping to get fishing poles to, go do something fun. So I would forage for mushrooms and then make, cooking. I would cook them up, which is actually, there's some mushrooms you can't cultivate. They have to be grown in the wild. You don't even get to eat them unless you go into the woods and get them. It's pretty cool. And they're delicious. Diet and nutrition is huge. I didn't realize how big it was. Wake up and wiggle is what number one helped me out. Wake up and just move your body, get something, get the blood flowing. Don't sit back down or stay there. But cast iron was kind of a big deal too. There's a lot of stuff with iron deficiencies, and that's cheap and free. You don't have to take a supplement. You just cook in cast iron, and you get it over time. And that stops a lot of things. It might not be an issue, but if it is something that you can't figure out what's going on, switch to cast iron. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Eating live food. There's a guy named Napoleon Hill, and he mentioned that there would be a lot of ultra-processed foods, plastic, and he wanted something that was alive 5 minutes ago. Fruit, fish, meats, something that was alive, not wrapped in plastic. And he's onto something. That was from the 70s, because I think we've gone too far to that right. I took a sober year. I reminded myself the alcohol wasn't in charge, or whatever, wasn't in charge, and I could be who I wanted to be. And I found more energy, better vitals, more passion. But now it's been reintroduced in social settings, which is still fine. It's whatever each person wants to do, but it's a part of life for me, and it'll just be that. But everything is worse. If you're in a terrible situation, it's worse on alcohol, period. Service projects were huge. This is how to make a successful service project in your community. This is kind of a strategy that was used overseas to help win over communities, to make them more positive and kind of see what life could be like. And did like 25 to 40 of them through veteran service organizations, but they helped me get back into the community. There was a social aspect to it, and it was positive. So these are the recovery obstacles. So the cards are stacked against healing, period. And this is kind of what it looks like. Like criminal record, I would never I would have to answer for it all the time, think about it all the time, background checks. And it's like, man, this is like 10, 15, 20 years ago, and I still have to answer for this. When is it over? If you're saying I'm not healed, I'm not healed. You know, if I can't have this job because of something I did, and that's an internal monologue. That's not what goes on in the interview. You know, that's like, golly goodness, I still got to answer for this, and you sure do. And you have to make up for it with post-traumatic growth. So moving on, financial burdens, stats and stigmas. You can't achieve your way through trauma. I found that out. It doesn't matter how many degrees or certifications. If you're still having those thoughts or still in that downward spiral, it's not you're not there. Anger and fear as an emotion for abandonment. Yeah, that's exactly right. I have my rock bottom, which is I think you can lose everything because it's happened. And so that's how I measure everything else, and that's I'm wired for trauma, and that really I have to mitigate against that. Invasive rumination, which is where somebody, in my case, made me feel like I was a charity case, or maybe it was an unqualified person who didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing, and we were both just there for you got to be here, you got to be here. So changes your identity. Next slide, please. Re-traumatization through the process of reprocessing. That's huge too. So when you do what you have to reprocess all the time. You can think about something, compartmentalize it, think about something next year, and you have a whole different perspective. Just like you can test differently for the Myers-Briggs over time, you can feel a certain type of way, rethinking about the same things. But measuring that stuff with data, how much better is my life? Make a list. Positive things in my life right now. Negative things. Well, a lot more positive now that I've cut out all these toxic things and I've removed myself from the environment and I've really leaned into my network and my positive strengths or whatever. So veteran-specific stuff, we don't really have to talk about all that, but it's out there. I mean, who'd you serve with? Who's your mom and them? You know, kind of deal. It's like, what did y'all do? And then you just feel like you didn't do enough. Well, I was in the Air Force, or I stayed career. I was in the States, but you get out here and it doesn't matter. I've seen master sergeants, I've seen colonels get out into the real world and just get eaten up, and it's sad. Like colonels are committing suicides too. So again, it's there's a lot of different aspects. Survivor's guilt, which can happen from any type of trauma. Bullying is underrated. That's where it starts. That's where it started for me. And bully people turn into bullies, period. And then you have to learn, and part of that is burying your hatchets, giving forgiveness to yourself, asking for forgiveness from others. Literally at 35 years old, contacting people, hey, sorry about everything. And you'd be surprised what kind of conversations they'll start and what it does for your own identity. Like, hey, all right, no problem. Because everybody's in that cog in some sort of wheel, and it's nice to get an apology every once in a while. I mean, there's a lot of recovery obstacles, and you really there should be more wellness ones, but prescriptions, there's too many of them, and they're in schools because of it. Get rid of these toxic people in your life, people who say that you can't do something, or hey, that's kind of risky, or measure it, but it's like, you want to start a business, or go for it. You want to go into college, yeah, it's expensive, go for it. But also the enablers, like, yeah, it's okay to just sit on the couch all the time and smoke. You can do that. No, you can't. You are guilty by association with the 5 people you hang around most. Successful by association as well, and I learned that. This is drugs. Quick facts here. Everybody's on some sort of drug, whether it's sugar or caffeine, or has done them at some point in their life. So I make a joke that we're all traumatized and we're on drugs, but that's not true. But maybe chocolate. So they do alter your body. They do cost time and money. A $20 a day habit is $73,000 over 10 years. That's a house. Maybe not around here anymore, but it's a house. And trying drugs once can kill you. 20 different white powders look the same. Heroin, salt, pepper, or salt, sugar, but cocaine, PCP, angel dust. These things, they all look the same. They all look the same. I saw a briefcase once where I used to work, and there were 20 white powders. And doing drugs one time will kill you. It can. And that's the risk. This was kind of how drugs progressed for me. It was fun at first. You meet a lot of new friends. Drinking. You meet a lot of new friends. It's a distraction from all the crazy stuff that's going on. And maybe you find a good hobby. Maybe you find a good network of people who are just passing through too. But long-term effects of that lead into the short-term effects, the long-term effects, and then that red line is where you quit and you stop. You're tired of the long-term effects, which which are just exaggerations of the short-term effects. So cardiac issues, diabetes, that's short-term effects. Those long-term effects are heart failure, bedridden. After recovery, that's when the hard work starts. You're going to start feeling these terrible symptoms, and it's terrible. And the only thing to fix it would be more drugs. But you have to look forward to your drug-free future, which is you save time and money, and you have higher focus and higher purpose. You have better friends, better digestion, more physiological benefits, and you regain your initial identity back. So part of removing myself from the environment was returning to my homeostasis. No drugs, water, giving myself the resources I needed for my full potential. I need to wake up and wiggle. I need to have quality time. I need to compartmentalize my day to reduce stressors. Your network, how my network helped. Some good quotes. Mentorship does not look like what it used to. You have to go out and seek it. You have to ask people you respect what their opinions are, because everybody's busy. And people might not know that they're leaders or mentors, or that they have information that you might want. So you have to be an active participant in mentorship. Nobody's going to come mentor you, and that's the whole point, is that you have to take charge. I had to take charge because I had been just, ill-willed toward every other solution, putting somebody else in charge. So I had to take charge of what I wanted done. And I had goals that I set with a purpose and started actively working toward it. Time management is huge. Remove yourself from the environment, but then create space to heal. So how do you do that? Take a Friday, Monday off. That's 2 days of PTO with a 4-day vacation. All right, throw a floating day out there on the calendar. So no matter what, it's a surprise. You're not taking a day off to go to a doctor's appointment or to a school play. You're taking a day off to go fish. Put it out there, you deserve it. Nobody's gonna tell you to take a lunch either. You rate a lunch, take a lunch, and do whatever you want to do on that lunch. Yeah, if you can get it done within 5 minutes, do it. Best quote up there, 2 of them. How do you eat an elephant? Most people say bite at a time, and you don't. You eat the rear end first. You eat the hardest part first. And you get that out of the way, and everything else is gravy. Yeah, you lick the frog. That's right, man. Don't be so hard on yourself, but also don't change 10 things. I couldn't change everything at once. And I do apologize for saying you. I'm talking to myself here, it's me. But I can't change 10 things at once. I can change one thing, get really good at it, do it 10 times. Garden, wake up and garden. Wake up and propagate a plant. That's money, that's a stock. If you want to know something that grows double and guaranteed is turning a plant into another plant for free and selling at the farmer's market. Community engagement, so these are just ideas for people who want to re-enter. These are healthy ways. Find commonalities with people, start softly if you wanted to. Like digital, check it out, treat it like a video game. LinkedIn is a video game. Everybody's playing it. If you're in the professional realm, that really helped out. Just putting yourself out there to be counted. Reunion of small circles, that's what helped me. Seeing my friends, these compadres from a long time ago doing okay, having the same struggles, validating each other's experiences. You're like, oh yeah, man, so that really helped. Hobbies, yep, next. It's my wife, Spousal Support. An employee, I would say, to my recovery. She's not, but golly goodness, if it's not a full-time job, and she's the family caretaker, she takes care of everything. So 2 children, 2 dogs, very thankful for her. And what helped me, what she did, and she didn't know she was doing this, she's just a good person. She absorbed a lot of the stresses. Financial problems might have come up, and I was tired of checking the mail. I don't want to check the mail. I don't want to look at the mailbox. She would check the mail. I didn't have to worry about it. She'd take control of all that stuff. I don't even have to think about it. I look at Excel sheets, and I don't have to do that at the house. But she also gave me space. She recognized my triggers. She knew when I needed space and I just wanted to sit there, maybe pet a dog, or when I needed to go out into a trip. And sometimes she would say that, like, hey, it's a free weekend. We're going to go to Mimi's, and the woods are wide open. So it's like, all right, I'll get some stuff done here. And you feel a lot better, because what happens is there's a backlog of processing trauma that builds up into these bigger symptoms, and you have to lean into them. You can lean into them through post-traumatic growth, and she gave me the opportunity to be able to do that. And then she validated a lot of the stuff that was going on, or advised, actually, that's not normal. No, that's not what a healthy person would do in that situation. So having all of this stuff happen at once, improved time management, validation of achievements, getting certifications, reducing stress, leaving the environment, creating space for healing, and all that kind of stuff, it allowed me to love myself again. because I saw somebody else loving me too, and it was worth it. It was like, hey, that's where we are. So bringing it back in, life's not over. It's just like this, And I didn't have a narrative. I just had a bunch of notes and stuff. But this, thank you to Robin for letting me speak for so long and creating this moment. Really, Pam as well. Those are the high notes. I would suggest checking those out because those are the things that might help. Maybe spread like a virus. So thanks for your time. I really do appreciate you out there too in the Zoom. You back there behind the camera. Thank you.
I always try to pull something that really hit me from everybody's conversation, from everybody's presentation. And the one I heard today really strongly is trauma can teach us something positive, but we have to make something positive out of trauma. So that's what I heard today. So thank you so much. Erik will be available in the front if you didn't get to your question or you have any other questions you want to talk to him about. Our next presentation is going to be on September 21st, and it's going to be a little bit different. We are going to tackle the subject of suicide, which is a difficult subject to tackle. We are going to have a video that we were led to by NAMI. It's been produced by someone else. And there are going to be 5 people talking about their suicide attempts or their suicidal ideations. It's an excellent video. I would definitely recommend that all of you come. Bring anybody that you know might want to have more information about this subject. So thank you very much for your afternoon, and take good care of your mental health.